it's pretty interesting with 3 games to go. You have Texas and Oklahoma State at 5-1, then 5 different teams at 4-2, all just lurking, all with opportunity. And then after that, you kind of get more of that middle class teams with Texas Tech at 3-3, a bunch of 2-4 teams, and then UCF. Great win for Gustavo on Saturday, getting it done over Cincinnati on the road for their first Big 12 win. So pretty interesting when you look at the total standings. And unlike the old Big 12 where everybody played everybody, it was kind of easier to sort out. There's going to be a few more interesting potential tiebreakers in place. Of course, hey, if Oklahoma State and Texas win out, that would be your Big 12 championship game. And usually these are 2 teams that play every single year. And that wasn't the case this year. So it would be an interesting matchup if that comes down. But considering 3 weeks ago, we thought, hey, Texas and Oklahoma, they seem to be the world beaters, king of the world. And OU's lost twice now in the last couple of weeks. And then for Texas, boy, they look mighty vulnerable, granted against a good K-State team. But, boy, things are wide open with 3 weeks to go.
I'll tell you what, Russell, let me ask you a question. Blind ranking here. Which is the tougher schedule for the final 3 weeks? At TCU, at Iowa State, and versus Texas Tech at home, or your at Central Florida, at Houston, and at home against BYU? The 4 teams that we just
tougher schedule's number 1, in my opinion, and that's Texas's schedule.
That's Texas's schedule, and the second one's Oklahoma State's schedule. So they're sitting at with 1 loss in the conference, and that's honestly probably as easy of a final quarter of the season that you can get. I probably don't want to travel across the country to Disney World, but other than that, I mean, that's...
And that's why that matchup, that win again in Bedlam for Oklahoma State on Saturday was major, because on paper, they will be favorites in the last 3 games. And as of right now, none of those 3 teams on their schedule has shown the ability to compete with the top of the conference. So I don't know if they're going to be able to keep up with that. Texas's schedule is not easy either, but I think winnable games for all 3 for sure. But going to TCU, that's going to be a little bit of a battle. You know, they'll get their best shot, get one more crack in Ames, which that will be, I'm sure, a train wreck at Jack Trice in terms of entertainment. And Tech, is going to give them a shot in Austin. That's guaranteed. So you're right. I mean, it's still a lot to play out. And boy, if one of those 2 teams lose or both teams lose for some reason, my goodness, Brandon, you better bring out your calculator, because we're going to have some bizarre tie-break scenarios.
Yeah, so and later this week, I'm actually going to do a YouTube live where I go through these scenarios. I finally found a good data set that's like, all right, it's the Kelly Ford. They do a leverage system where it's like, here's the percentage where you're at now. You have, for Nebraska, for instance, they coming into this week, a 7% chance of making the Big Ten championship game. If they won, that number doubles to 14. If they lose, that number drops to like 2%. Which, by the way, if Iowa loses one of these next 2 games, Nebraska wins out. Who knows? They still got a chance. It is what it is. So I'm going to kind of dive into that because the Big 12 in particular, like you said, as of right now, if Texas and Oklahoma State can just keep on cruise control, win the games that they're supposed to, then, easy breezy. We have an all-orange Big 12 championship game. But that's not how college football works. So now we got to try to factor in, well, what happens if Texas loses? What happens if Oklahoma State loses? Because you're right, there is almost a half a dozen teams lurking with 2 losses, just ready to go. Kansas, Oklahoma, Kansas State, West Virginia, Iowa State, and they're all ready and frothing at the mouth. Oklahoma has that head-to-head win over Texas, so if Texas drops a game and it comes down to a head-to-head tiebreaker, Oklahoma gets the nod, despite not looking particularly good. Kansas State's now... that game against Kansas looks like it could be an elimination game. I mean, we're really dialed in here, so I'm super stoked to kind of look through this. If I had my way, I'd have a big map behind me, and I'd be going through all the scenarios to see who's got the best shot to get to 270. But nonetheless, it'll do. I'm
gonna have to call you Brandon Kornacki.
Yeah, that's the dream, Drew Russell. We got to
I
start making
need
some money so I can get me a map.
you need to buy yourself a big whiteboard and then just go Charlie Day off of Always Sunny in Philadelphia and just go crazy where you're writing down all these scenarios.
Yeah,
Just
that's-
finger pointing,
Oh,
right, yelling gibberish. You're not sure what we're saying at the time. You yell, read the board over and over. Seems like
you know, that might be the move. I can afford a whiteboard. I can't afford a computer generated map with the analytics that I want.
Yeah, no, we can't all be Alex Rodriguez. You're dead right there. A-Rod Corp is America's favorite. So
Absolutely.
But there's a lot of scenarios that, I mean, as we dig kind of into just some of the results of these games and our reactions, I mean, it just shows this conference. I'm not saying it's been the most pretty football at times this season, but when it comes to entertainment value, there has not been not many, if any, in this country that's delivered like the Big 12.